excessive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in this case, mukhang irregular, highly irregular po yung procurement process.
Last 2 minutes.
Okay lang, Mr. Chair. I will not take up any more time. The rest of it naman po would be properly answered by the OVP. So in that case, Mr. Chair, I will yield to the other interpellators. Maraming salamat po, COA and DBM. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We will proceed to the next interpellator, the Honorable Congresswoman Luistro. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish to manifest that the refusal of Her Excellency Vice President Sara Duterte to take her oath in today's hearing in the conduct of inquiry in aid of legislation is an affirmation of her stand, her position during the budget briefing of the OVP. And this representation wishes to manifest that when the resource speaker does not take her oath, then it follows that whatever statement she will provide, we call it, it could not hold any water. That being not under oath, the same cannot be used as an evidence in any inquiry, in any proceeding, Mr. Chair. In other words, her refusal to answer in the last budget briefing of the OVP is tantamount to her stand in today's inquiry of refusing to take her oath. That is for manifestation, Mr. Chair. And with that, Mr. Chair, I wish to remind the committee, our esteemed colleagues, and the Filipino people of the constitutional mandate that public office is a public trust. When there is a question, we're bound to answer. We're bound to explain. As a matter of fact, no less than the Philippine Constitution provides, we are accountable to the Filipino people at all times. We are now confronted by the issue on confidential fund. And I wish to emphasize, ang confidential fund po ay pera ng taong bayan. And we owe it to the people to explain kung paano ito ginastos, saan ito napunta, and to be specific, sinunod po ba natin ang joint circular regulating the use of confidential fund. Mr. Chair, I wish to raise as well, to invoke as well, and remind our esteemed colleagues that pursuant to the separation of power, we, the Congress, is exercising the power to legislate. Under this power, we also have the power of the purse. We can amend, we can revise, we can approve, and we can disapprove the budget that was proposed to us by the executive. And I wish to remind as well that the best instrument which shows the power of the purse of the people is no less than the General Appropriations Bill, which is an embodiment of the allocation for the entire Philippine government, which is the result of the legislative process of the Congress. In other words, ang budget po ng ating bansa ay napapaloob din sa isang batas, saklaw ng kapangyarihan ng Kongreso, and that is the power to legislate. To be able to make sure that the power of the purse is properly exercised, we are granted as well by the oversight power. And that is to make sure that all our legislations, that includes the budget of the national government, the General Appropriations Act, are well complied with by our fellow public servants. And to make sure, and as a consequence of this oversight power, we have this inquiry in aid of legislation. So I just wish to remind the Filipino people, and that includes the OVP, ito po ay trabaho ng Kongreso. Busisiin ang budget. And not only that, to exercise the oversight power to make sure na yun pong ating mga nakaraang legislation that includes the General Appropriations Act ay nagamit ng tama ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno. I hope that the OVP will be enlightened to address the issues instead of attacking this institution, of politicizing, and matters concerning politics, Mr. Chair. Third, Mr. Chair, we should be uniform in the application of our rules. If we are guided by the constitutional mandate that public office is a public trust, if we observe malfeasance, misfeasance, and nonfeasance in the LGUs, as a matter of fact, we have pending inquiry in aid of legislation concerning LGUs. Kung iniimbestigahan po natin ang Office of the Mayor, kung iniimbigastahan po natin ang Office of the Governor, by equality under the law, we should conduct an investigation as well to the Office of the Vice President. And I wish to thank the Honorable Valeriano for taking a stand before the plenary to initiate this inquiry in aid of legislation to address the observation not only of this representation, but of our fellow members of the Committee on Appropriations about the irregularities which we have seen already in the disbursement of fund, as a matter of fact, not only of the confidential fund, but even the regular allocation of the OVP. With that, Mr. Chair, may I proceed to my question for the COA? Kanina
Yes.
po,
But after your lengthy manifestation, you have already
Mr. Chair.
consumed 4
just
minutes.
one question,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Just
Chair,
one question.
Yes, the Honorable Marcoleta.
May I offer a counter manifestation, Mr. Chair?
Later po, 1 minute na lang po siya and then
Kasi
I will
baka
recognize.
makalimutan yung continuity, yung flow ng discussion. I'd like to ask only, Mr. Chair, by way of manifestation, is there anybody who is questioning the power of the purse of Congress? Is there anybody who is questioning the legislative function and oversight function of Congress? Is there? Because if there is none, then we are not supposed to overextend the discussion or any manifestation because nobody is questioning that. And I think nobody could question that. Even the privileged speech of the Honorable Valeriano. I think the proper question there, the proper title is not asserting the power of the purse. We should not assert it because that power is inherent in us. Asserting or not asserting that power is of no moment. Yun po ay birthright. Yun po is inherent right of Congress. And let me make of record, the office of the Vice President, to my mind, did not undermine the power of the purse. When she personally came in the first hearing and presented herself, including the budget by way of a PowerPoint presentation, she made a presentation, Mr. Chair. And after that, she made a categorical statement that she said, I forgo, Madam Chair, I forgo my opportunity to defend the budget of the Office of the President by way of question and answer, and instead I leave it to the discretion of the House of Representatives on their decision to decide on the proposal as presented. This is a very respectful answer, Mr. Chair. I did not find any offensive remark in that particular statement. She gave the entire House of Representatives the entire discretion, the entire right to decide on the proposal she presented before us. Why would we blame her for saying that she disrespected Congress? No, sir. I think it was triggered by the fact that questions were asked in relation to the confidential and intelligence funds. To my mind, Mr. Chair, these particular funds were subjected to a notice of disallowance. But the notice of disallowance by its nature, by its very nature, Mr. Chair, is contestable. It is appealable. It is yet to be explained. And initially, as explained by the representative of COA, the notice of disallowance suffered by way of supporting documents, by way of non-compliance with certain requisites. What if the Vice President is able to provide all the supporting documents? What if finally she is able to come up with the requisites required in order for you to consider that all these funds are eventually allowable and they are not disallowed? And chances are she may be able to do that. Hindi po final judgment ang notice of disallowance. As a matter of fact, based on COA's own representation the other day, the Vice President received the notice of disallowance only on August 24, 2024, which means, Mr. Chair, the Vice President has 6 months within which to reply and make an answer. That is correct, Madam COA. So, 6 months is up to February 2025. We should give her all the allowance. We should give her the time. Because 6 months is 6 months. So why are we rushing to make a judgment? As a matter of fact, as I have already initiated earlier, Mr. Chair, when you said that anything we can discuss in this committee provided it is of public interest, and you said that intelligence funds and confidential funds are public interest, but I said, because of our own rules, we should make a prior and preliminary determination that is directly and principally connected to malfeasance, misfeasance, or non-feasance. We have not made that determination. How can we now begin questioning whether or not the intelligence funds covered by an initial notice of disallowance is already directly and principally connected with non-feasance, or misfeasance, or malfeasance? Madam COA, how many agencies of government today are subjected to notice of disallowance? Do you have a number? How many agencies
Mr.
today?
Chair,
With all
Mr.
due
Chair,
respect
point of
to
order,
the
Mr.
Before
Honorable...
But that is a question I will leave, and I will
Yes.
terminate
But-
my manifestation, Madam.
Yes, but I will.
I
I
believe,
would like
Mr.
to
Chair, that
respond.
this is still my time.
Yes, but I would like to respond to your manifestation, Congressman Marcoleta.
Parliamentary
Let
inquiry,
me.
Mr. Chair. Parliamentary inquiry
What is
muna.
the parliamentary inquiry of
I
the
would
Honorable
like to
Abante?
ask the Honorable Marcoleta, is he rebuking this committee?
What is the question, Mr. Chair?
Are you rebuking this committee?
Why am I supposed to rebuke the committee? I am
You
not.
have been saying things for a while.
What?
You have been rebuking this committee.
You are
We're
saying
not,
that.
We're not blaming the Vice President on this.
I
Honorable
asked the
Marcoleta,
question.
we
I asked
are
the
not
question.
blaming
You do not have the
the-
right to depend on that.
1 minute suspension is declared by the chair.
Move to suspend.
Before I recognize the Honorable Congressman Luistro, let me first respond to the manifestation of the Honorable Marcoleta. Let me cite Section 4, Rule 4, Section 1, last paragraph, which provides that the filing or pendency of a case before any court, tribunal, quasi-judicial, or administrative body shall not stop or abate any inquiry conducted to carry out a legislative purpose. What we are doing right now is we are doing our mandate. This hearing is in aid of legislation. So, wala pa naman po tayong inaakusahan dito. The fact that the issue is still with COA and is still pending appeal, it does not stop this committee from conducting an inquiry in aid of legislation to conduct or to carry out our legislative purpose. So, yun lamang po. With this, I would like to give the... Ilang minuto pa po? Ma'am, you still have 1 more minute.
Mr. Chair, in response to the Honorable Marcoleta, this representation did not say that the OVP is questioning the power of the Congress. However, Mr. Chair, I wish to state for the record, how else will you interpret her refusal to answer? How else will you interpret her refusal to take an oath? I think, Mr. Chair, the only reasonable interpretation on her gestures is that she refused to participate in the investigation or inquiry in aid of legislation that we are conducting. Secondly, Mr. Chair, about the notice of disallowance, we take cognizance of the fact that this is not yet final and executory. As a matter of fact, the COA commented that the OVP has a period of 180 days, equivalent to 6 months to solicit to make an appeal for the purpose of seeking for a possible reversal of the ND. However, Mr. Chair, kapag ba may ND, bawal na bang malaman ito ng publiko? Kapag ba may ND, bawal na bang imbestigahan ito? And it is on this light that I invoke that public office is a public trust, and at all times, we are accountable to the Filipino people. In response to his comment about the possibility of the ND being reversed, I think I made a manifestation already in the last budget briefing of the DepEd. If in the event that the ND is reversed, in spite of having this inquiry already, the COA is not precluded. The COA is not prevented from sharing to the Filipino people that the OVP was able to justify, and therefore we are reversing the ND. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, I wish to emphasize that there is no law which prevents the Congress, which prevents the COA from discussing, deliberating on the subject matter of the notice of disallowance. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I still have a question?
I will give you 1 minute.
Para lang po sa understanding ng mga Pilipino, pwede po bang pakidistinguish in layman's term? Confidential fund from regular fund in 2 aspects. One is procurement, second is liquidation. Because we've been discussing about CF, confidential fund. The question is, naiintindihan ho ba tayo ng mga Pilipinong mamamayan? Now, I think it's high time for us to explain, COA, ano po ba ang diferensya o pagkakaiba? Confidential from regular with respect to one is procurement and second is liquidation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
COA, any representative from COA? Yes, Attorney Camora.
As to the confidential fund, it refers to a lump sum amount provided to NGAs, LGUs, and COBs for their confidential expenses, which expenses pertain to or are related to surveillance activities in civilian government agencies that are intended to support the mandate or operations of the agency. The audit of the confidential fund is based on the
Can we explain on the process of procurement or disbursement? You said it is a lump sum fund. May procurement process po ba kapag confidential fund?
Since it involves confidential activities,
There is none.
There is no procedures on procurement.
No compliance to procurement law is necessary for confidential fund.
Yes,
There
Madam
is no
Chair.
posting,
Mr.
there is
Chair.
no bidding. Tama po ba?
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
And with respect to the regular fund, we have to comply. In other words, the law on procurement and bidding has to be followed. Tama po?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Yes po, tama po.
Yes. Now let's go to liquidation. Ano pong diferensya ng confidential fund with the regular fund in terms of liquidation?
Mr. Chair, yung sa liquidation ng confidential fund is provided for under the joint circular. So, hindi po necessary na sinusunod namin yung sa regular fund.
Summary and in layman's term, ma'am, how do you make it more understandable for the Filipino people? Pagdating ng liquidation, distinguish natin CF from regular fund.
Mr. Chair, sa liquidation po ng CF, kung ano po ang required ng joint circular na documents to be submitted, yun po yung kailangan nilang isubmit, otherwise deficient yung liquidation nila.
Which is less compared to the regular fund.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Way
Mr.
less
Chair.
than the requirements for the liquidation of regular fund.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
In short, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, ano po ba yung mga requirements sa regular fund for purposes of liquidation na hindi nyo hinihingi sa confidential fund? In brief lang po.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I am only aware of the requirements ng sa confidential. So, may I ask the help of ano?
Mr. Chair, may I just manifest my request that I hope to hear a very
Maybe-
clear explanation from the
Maybe we
COA
can,
on our next hearing.
Maybe we can address that question to the state auditor,
Yes, Mr.
Attorney
Chair.
Tomawis. Would you like to respond to the query of the Honorable Luistro?
Mr. Chair, for the information, for the regular fund, for the liquidation of regular fund, it is subject to the COA circular wherein there is a documentary requirements required to be submitted. Then for the confidential fund, I have no exact information because it is based on the another joint circular. So there are two circulars to be required to be complied with. The COA circular, which is the documentary requirements for regular audit or for the regular transactions, and for the confidential fund, there is that joint circular that must be complied with.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect to the COA, this representation is not satisfied with the answer. So may I request for a better and clearer explanation on how we distinguish CF from regular fund in terms of procurement, that is one, and in terms of liquidation, that is two. We will be looking forward, Mr. Chair, to listening to the discussion and explanation of the COA on our next hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
the Honorable Vice Chair Acop.
May I just ask some clarification, which is connected with the questions of the Honorable Luistro?
With the indulgence of the Honorable Junicio, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I know from COA or from DBM, doon po sa mga GA natin, magkahiwalay po yung provision ng intelligence at sa confidential funds. Di po ba? Would you agree with that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. So, bakit po magkaiba? Bakit may separate provision yung intelligence fund, may separate provision yung confidential fund.
Attorney Camora, please respond.
Mr. Chair, saga din po yung difference actually po, which is ang intelligence fund po ay refers to those intelligence information gathering of uniformed and military personnel, and it has something to do with national security, while sa confidential expenses is for the civilian government po.
Specifically for what?
That are intended to support the mandate or operations of the agency.
Now, may I know if they are also required to submit reports of the utilization of these funds?
Intel funds po,
Both
Mr. Chair.
funds.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
To whom should they submit reports regarding their utilization?
Mr. Chair, as to the confidential funds, they need to submit for NGAs to the President of the Philippines, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and to other agencies to the Department Secretary. As to the Intel Fund, they submit their accomplishment report to the President of the Philippines.
Now, may I know what agency would look after the reporting of such? Sino po ang tumitingin kung ito'y nako-comply? Because I think this is part of the GAA, and the GAA is a law.
Mr. Chair, it is part of the required documents that they have to submit.
Sino po ang tumitingin na dapat nako-comply ang mga ito? Which agency of government? Kasi lahat po ng GAA may provision tungkol sa intelligence fund at saka confidential fund. It is always part of the GAA regarding provisions for the utilization of such. Di po ba? Oh, so sinabi nyo, it is required that they should submit reports. But who looks after the compliance of these agencies concerned?
Is it not the audit of the COA po?
It is also not the jurisdiction of DBM?
Mr. Chair, I think if it's on the utilization of funds, it's more on the COA.
Kaya nga po, it refers to intelligence and confidential funds. May reportorial requirements po ito. Now, who looks after the compliance of such?
Mr. Chair, kung yung sa liquidation po, sa COA po siya nagpupunta, yung reports po. And then, yung sa reporting agencies, it's the accomplishment report po of
Kayo
the
po
Intel and
nagsabi
Confidential
kanina
Fund.
na yung confidential fund, the reports must be made to the President of the Republic of the Philippines, doon po sa Senate President representing the Senate, at saka yung Speaker of the House representing the House. So, how do you determine whether this is complied with?
Part of the required documents is a proof of submission to the above agencies.
So, kayo,
Yes po, Mr. Chair.
kayo pala ang may jurisdiction nito na nagsasubmit sila ng mga reports in compliance with the provision of the GAA.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Kaya po, it's one of the required documents, yung proof po of submission.
No, nagpakalayo-layo pa tayo, madam. Kayo pala eh. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you po. The Honorable Senior Deputy Speaker
Thank you,
is
Mr. Chairman.
recognized for his manifestation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and fellow members of this 19th Congress and this good government and public accountability.
Boss.
As an ex officio member of this committee on good government and public accountability, please permit me the liberty to state that the legislative inquiry undertaken by this committee forms an integral part of its power to conduct legislative inquiries in aid of legislation. And in this case, as it relates to the exercise of the power of the purse of Congress itself. The Vice President, as an invited resource person, unfortunately refused to take an oath to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth before this committee. We have allowed the same only in this particular instance. In deference and with utmost respect to the office of the Vice President. Mr. Chairman, we also underscore that refusal to take an oath before this committee or any legislative hearing in Congress should not be considered as a precedent, as it goes against the power of Congress to conduct legislative inquiries under Article 6, Section 21 of the Constitution, as discussed in the case of Arnold versus Nazareno. This power of inquiry is coextensive with the power to legislate. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Valeriano is, before I recognize the Honorable Marcoleta, just a quick manifestation with the indulgence of Honorable Marcoleta, quick manifestation of the Honorable Congressman Valeriano. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in relation to the manifestation of Senior Deputy Speaker Gonzales, ito pong committee hearing natin ay initial deliberation and preliminary determination of my privileged speech last September 3. Partly nung speech ko po, and I quote again, hindi pera ng pangalawang Pangulo ang Office of the Vice President budget para sa 2022, 2023, 2024 at 2025. Pondo ng bayan yan. At yung iba po, pagkakataon na sana niyang patunayan sa Kongreso at sambayanan kung sino ang naging beneficiary ng kanyang mga socio-economic programs. At doon po, nilagay ko rin sa kanilang 2025 budget proposal, mayroong 977,615 beneficiaries at meron ding 793 strategic partnership noong 2023. Ako po yung natuwa kanina sa pagdating ni Vice President dahil ang buong akala ko ay masasagot niya yung katanungan ko sa privilege speech. Subalit, sa pagtanggi niya po ng pag-take ng oath at halos hindi niya rin po sinagot ay nakakalungkot din po. At asahan po ninyo na kung sakali man na maging maayos ang kinalabasan ng COA findings, ako po ay nakahanda ulit na tumayo at magsalita ulit kung ano man ang magiging rekomendasyon ng Commission on Audit. Salamat po, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The Honorable Marcoleta is now recognized for his interpellation.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, sasamantalahin ko na po ang presence po ng mga kinatawan ng Commission on Audit. Gusto ko po sanang itanong mula sa kanila, ano-ano pong mga opisina ng ating pamahalaan o ahensya ang pinagkakalooban po ng intelligence and confidential funds?
Attorney Camora, please respond.
Confidential funds are given to NGAs, to LGUs, and some GOCCs po.
You can elaborate, Madam Representative, sino po sa mga LGUs ang binibigyan po ng intelligence and confidential funds?
Sa LGUs po, Depende po sa LGU, sa POP po nila, Mr. Chair.
Hindi po ba yung mga opisina ng mayor ay nakakatanggap ng intelligence and confidential funds?
As long as it is part of their budget, Madam Chair, ay Mr. Chair.
Kaya nga po tinatanong ko sa inyo, kayo po nakakaalam kasi kung sino-sino sa kanila. Karaniwan po yung opisina ng mayor, nakatatanggap po, maaaring hindi lahat, ngunit nakatatanggap po basically yung opisina ng mayor. Tama po?
According to the joint circular po, LGUs whose peace and order is a priority concern, sila po usually yung nag-allocate ng confidential funds.
Kaya nga po, base po sa record ninyo, may mga mayors po, opisina ng mayor, ang nakatatanggap ng confidential and intelligence funds. Kasi po kayo ang nag-o-audit eh.
Yes po, Mr. Chair.
Para hindi na tayo magtagal, ganun lang kasi. Pati po opisina ng gobernador, nakakatanggap din po ng ganung klaseng pondo, hindi po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yun pong PNP, nakakatanggap po.
Intelligence fund po sa
Opo,
PNP.
yung AFP, nakakatanggap po.
Yes po, Mr.
Ang
Chair.
opisina po ng ating Pangulo ay nakakatanggap po ng intelligence funds.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ngayon po, sa mga karamihan po ng opisina ng mayor at opisina ng gobernador at alimpang mga LGUs na maaaring makatanggap nito, depende sa kanilang pangangailangan. Yung AFP at saka yung ating kapulisan at ang ating ang opisina po ng ating Panguluhan, masasabi po ba ninyo na merong na-issuean po ng notice or notices of disallowance sa napakaraming opisina na tumatanggap ng ganitong pondo?
Mr. Chair, pagka meron naman pong mga ibang agencies na katanggap
Kaya nga po
ng
gusto ko pong malaman, halimbawa 2022 at saka 2023, ballpark figures lang po, ilan po sa mga official at sa mga opisina ng mayor na nakatanggap ng confidential or intelligence funds ang subjected to notices of disallowance? Ilan po sa opisina ng gobernador, ganun din po yung tanong. At saka sa iba't ibang mga opisina po, para malaman lang natin, kahit ballpark figures lang, ilan po yung na-issue nyo na notices of disallowance concerning these types of funds?
Mr. Chair, wala po kaming data on the said information today because we only have data on the OVP po. I cannot give an exact number po
Bakit
today.
po? Kasasabi nyo lang na meron din kayong sinubject sa notice of disallowance eh. Bakit po yung opisina lang ng OVP ang meron kayong record?
Yung hawak po namin ngayon, Mr. Chair, since ito po yung subject ng inquiry, we are prepared as to the OVP. Pero as to other
O
agencies...
sige po, ganito na lang. Meron po ba kayong estimated na bilang ng na-issue nyo na kayo po kasi pag intelligence and confidential funds, kayo po yung auditing unit ang nakatoka para tingnan po ang pagkakagasta ng tipo ng fondong ito. Tama po?
Tama po, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Makapagsasabi po ba kayo ng estimated number? Ito po, kinabibilangan ng opisina ng mayor, ng gobernador, ng ISAP, ng kung ano-ano, ng siguro po, maski National Intelligence Security Council, AFP, ang kapulisan. Can you provide us a ballpark number of the notices of disallowance that your office has initially issued?
Mr. Chair, I cannot give you a ballpark figure now since hindi naman po ako involved sa entire ICFAO. So,
wala po bang isa sa inyo na nakaupo ngayon sa aming harapan ang makapagbibigay man lang ng estimated number? Napakarami po ng mayor, napakarami po ng gobernador.
precisely, sir, kaya sa ibang division, wala po akong...
Pwede ba natin sabing 100 or 500 notices of disallowance?
I cannot say po, Mr. Chair.
How can you help us? We are supposed to be doing this in aid of legislation. Kaya namin kayo pinatawag para tulungan nyo kami.
Mr. Chair,
Ang sabi po ng jurisprudence, which was quoted by no less than the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Reynato Puno, quoting various jurisprudence. Kasama na po yung Arnold versus Nazareno. There should be a legislative purpose. That's number one requirement. The number two requirement, there should be pertinency in relation to those legislative purpose. Kaya po
Congressman Marcoleta,
tinatanong
you
ko,
have 1 minute.
tinatanong ko po ngayon, gaano karami, o sige ganito na lang, marami ba ang na-issue nyo po na notices of disallowance in connection with these types of fund?
Sir, I really cannot give an exact number
Hindi nga sabihin mo
today.
lang, marami.
Attorney,
Medyo marami.
Attorney Camora, could you please submit the documents that the Honorable Marcoleta is requesting?
Yes.
Kasi sa ngayon,
Mr.
bago ako
As to the
magtapos,
numbers.
Mr. Chair, I want
Yes,
to wind
Mr.
up now.
Yes.
I want
please
to wind up now. Can you at least sabihin mo lang, marami, medyo marami. Pati ba naman yun, hindi mo... Ang dami po nating mayor dito sa buong Pilipinas, ang daming gobernador, pati kapulisan, ISAP, AFP. So sabi mo kanina, marami na-cover ng... ilan ba?
Madam Chair, kung yung current year, I can answer na
O yung,
konti lang
on
po.
the average noon, yung halimbawa 2020, 2021, 2022, by way of your experience, by way of your former data,
Previous years po, I cannot say since bago lang po ako sa ICPAO. So, we could just provide you po with the documents.
Please wrap up. One last question, Congressman
what
Marcoleta.
about to the other members of the Commission on Audit? Through your experience, let's say in the last 10 years, wala kayong may bibigay? Alam po ninyo kung bakit ko tinatanong ito? Kung marami po kayong na-issue, at alam ko marami talaga, na notices of disallowance, pupuntahin natin dito lahat, hindi lang ang Office of the Vice President at dapat umupo dito. Lahat na po ng inisyuhan nyo ng notices of disallowance must sit here para makagawa po kami ng mas maganda, mas balanse na batas. Kung pag-uusapan po ay ang paggamit nitong intelligence funds. Do you understand, Madam?
Yes, I understand po. For the question.
So,
However,
the committee is expecting to receive the number as well as the pertinent records pertaining to the issuance of notices of disallowance to the municipal mayors, governors, the PNP, the AFP, and such other agencies who are recipients of intelligence and confidential funds, because later on we will also summon them and sit
Congressman-
with us. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair.
Congressman
Thank you.
Marcoleta, you cannot move because you are not a member of this committee.
It's good that you have raised that, Mr. Chair. I am a vice chair of this committee. On September 4, I was surprised because I saw the journal that I was replaced by my comare. The question is, if I am replaced as a vice chair, does that automatically mean that I am removed as a member of this committee? Before you answer that, Mr. Chair, I think I need some legal basis before you answer that.
Yes, your removal from the vice chair, you were removed in a plenary session, House Rules. Now, under Section 28 of the House Rules, it provides that the House shall, upon the recommendation of the Committee on Rules, organize committees, their membership, and jurisdiction. Therefore, your removal as vice chair and member of the House was a plenary action, and therefore, it should be the plenary who should include you as member or as vice chair. Thank Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it was very clear that I was removed as vice chair. I was not removed as a member.
Because you were
There is this distinction between being a member and vice chair. If I
Yes,
was
but-
removed as vice chair,
but your appointment as vice chair, you were not appointed as member. Your appointment was as vice chair. So hindi naman po kayo
Mr.
in-appoint
Chair.
muna as member bago kayo ginawang vice chair. Your immediate appointment was as vice chairman, and therefore your removal as vice chair will remove you as member also. Yun po yun. And
Well,
it's a
that is
plenary
your-
action. The committee has nothing to do with it.
that is your opinion, Mr. Chair, but I am expecting that some kind of a basis should be presented that upon removal of a vice chair, that automatically also removes him as a member of that committee. That's all I am asking, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
We have already answered the manifestation or the inquiry of the Honorable Marcoleta. Next to interpolate is
Mr. Chairman,
Honorable.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, with the permission, with the indulgence of Honorable Dionisio, I would like to recognize the Honorable Paduano.
Mr. Chairman, under our rules, there's a motion for a point of order, and this is one of the highest motion that should be ruled by the chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, just a parliamentary procedure, the chairman should recognize the person that moves for a point of order, because that is one of the highest motion that should be recognized by the chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Noted, noted. Honorable
Mr. Chair,
Honorable Vice Chairman Abante.
with the indulgence of Congressman Dionisio, may I be recognized?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, with the
just a point of inquiry. There's a motion for a point of order, and I have stated that is one of the highest, well, in fact, second highest motion. So the chairman should rule on that point of order that was raised by, I think it's Congressman Valeriano.
My point of order is that the chairman already ruled na he was removed as vice chairman of the Committee on Good Government and Public Accountabilities. That's
It
all,
was
Mr.
already
Chairman.
answered. It was already ruled, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you po.
Mr. Chair.
With the indulgence of Congressman Dionisio, the Chair would like to recognize the Vice Chairman Abante.
Mr. Chair, a while ago, COA has answered the question of Congressman Romy Acop as far as the difference between an intelligence fund and confidential fund. Can you please repeat that? Meron pagkakaiba ang intelligence fund saka ang confidential fund?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ang Intel Fund po, it is given to uniformed and military personnel and intelligence practitioners. And the purpose is for activities that have direct impact to national security. For confidential fund, they are given to civilian government agencies that are intended to support the mandate or operations of the agency.
Okay, Mr. Chair, therefore, ang intelligence fund, hindi confidential fund.
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
pero kanina, yung pong question ni Congressman Marcoleta, sinasabi niya palagi, confidential fund or intelligence fund. Am I right?
They are separate po.
O therefore, hindi po masyado naintindihan ni Congressman Marcoleta yung katanungan niya. Sapagkat kanyang pinareho ang confidential fund at ang intelligence fund. Na gusto kong itanong, Mr. Chair, no? Sinabi niya kanina, sinabi mo na mayroong confidential fund ng mga mayors and governors, di ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Intelligence fund, meron ba silang intelligence fund?
Generally, wala po since hindi naman po sila uniformed personnel.
Okay, malinaw, Mr. Chair, na walang intelligence fund ang mga gobernador at mga mayor. Pero merong confidential fund. Yun po ba? Tama ba ako?
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yung mga vice mayor at vice governor, meron ba intelligence fund o confidential fund? Meron ba silang confidential fund ang vice mayor at vice governor?
Actually, sir, it's per agency po. So, if, for example, ma-designate na SDO ang vice, pwede po siyang mabigyan.
Ano yun, ano yun?
It's
If
per
he is
agency po.
designated
If
as
he is
mayor. Correct.
As SDO po.
Oh,
As SDO.
sabihin, if the vice mayor is designated as mayor, magkakaroon siya, correct?
As mayor po. As SDO po.
Ano SDO?
As Special Disbursing Officer.
Special dispersing
Special
officer.
Yes.
Ay kung hindi, wala siyang confidential fund.
Yes.
O therefore, regularly, walang confidential fund ang vice mayor at ang vice governor.
Yes.
Ayan. Katulad din po yan ng Pangulo. Ang Pangulo dapat magkaroon ng confidential fund. Tama ho ba ako?
Kung based sa GAA po, tama po.
Opo. Pero ang Vice President, hindi kinakailangan magkaroon ng confidential fund. Am I right?
Not in...
Am I right? Not necessarily correct. Following my question on the line of questioning that I have with the Vice Governor and the Vice Mayor.
Sa NGAs po kasi, sir, what is expressly provided
Oo.
in the GAA. In the GAA po.
Then normally, katulad ng, I'm just following the question that I asked, di ba? Sabi mo kanina, yung Vice Governor at yung Vice Mayor, normally, wala yung confidential fund. Correct? Oh.
Yes, Madam. Mr.
Unless
Chair.
otherwise, they've been designated as what?
As SDO, Mr. Chair.
SDO. Okay. Ganon din naman ang Pangulo at ang Vice President. Correct? Oh, kung yung Vice President designated din na ganyan, meron siyang confidential fund. Am I right?
Mr. Chair, what we only know is whoever is given confidential funds in the GAA can use
Siguro ang
confidential
DBM
funds.
pwede makasagot niyan. Yusek, pwede mo ba sagutin to?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yusek Toledo, you're recognized.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there is a provision in the GAA kung sino yung nabigyan po natin ng confidential fund, which is basically na-identify doon sa bawat GAA po natin. For example, for 2023, nabigyan po natin ng ang mga ahensya ng gobyerno ng confidential fund from OP, tapos doon sa Office of the Vice President, at mayroon din sa DA, mayroon din sa DepEd, may DNAHO. So all the way po, may listahan po tayo ng confidential funds na binibigyan natin sa bawat ahensya.
Yung po bang binigay nating confidential funds sa Vice President, is that normal? Is that a normal procedure? Is that a normal procedure or not? O ito lang kahilingan? Kahilingan lang po ito.
There was releases po natin in the previous administration, even Mr. Chair. So I think part of that, at may request po sila, so we provided them.
Kahilingan, request, di ba?
Mr.
But it
Chair.
is normal procedure. Si Vice President Lenny po ba, mayroon siyang confidential fund? Vice President Lenny Robredo? Nagkaroon ba siya ng confidential fund? O hindi siya humiling?
I will check, Mr. Chair, of the data we have already. For what?
Yung ibang naging Vice President, for example, like Vice President Kabayan, Noli de Castro, meron po bang confidential
Yeah.
fund?
As Mr. Chair, as far as for the Vice President Leonor Bredo, wala pong confidential funds
Ayan,
po
wala.
na binigay natin.
Vice President de Castro, wala din, di ba?
I think wala rin.
Vice President Doy Laurel, wala rin.
If I, that's too long. Sorry, sir. Oh, yeah?
Hindi pa,
Wala
bata pa kayo noon.
Wala pa. Yes, Mr. Chair. Sorry for that. Pero yes, Mr. Chair, probably from the previous administration lately, as mentioned, si Vice Mayor, President Leonor Bredo, wala pong confidential fund.
Therefore, Yusek Toledo, taga saan po kayo, Toledo?
Sir, I'm from Region 1,
Ah?
North, Region 1 po ako.
Region 1, sa Ilocos.
Pangasinan, sir.
Saan?
From Pangasinan, Mr. Chair?
Pangasinan?
Yes, sir.
O, baka mag-anak kayo na misis ko. Toledo ang misis ko eh. Taga
Please wrap
Pangasinan
up,
din.
Congressman Abante.
Oh, hindi, natanong ko lang. Natanong ko lang. Kamag-anak ko to eh. Okay. Teka lang. Meron pa akong tanong sandali eh. Ha?
Mr.
So
Chairman.
therefore, Mr. Chair, it is not a normal procedure for the Vice President to have confidential funds because the previous Vice Presidents did not ask for any confidential fund, Mr. Chair. That is what I'm trying to say. So therefore, this is just a request from the Vice President. And being a very courteous DBM, you have given the Vice President confidential fund because if that is normal procedure and according to law, you should have given already confidential fund to the Vice President now. Di ba? Tama ba ako?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you're right.
Ayun. O gusto ko lang po malaman, Mr. Chair, ng taong bayan natin na hindi po normal procedure na magkaroon ng confidential fund ang Vice President sapagkat yung mga previous na Vice President ay hindi po nagkaroon ng confidential. Ito po'y kahilingan lamang. Kaya ang tanong natin dito, bakit kinakailangan magkaroon ng confidential fund ang Vice Presidente? Tulad po ng tanong ni Congressman Marcoleta, wala na po siya rito. Yung mayor, yung governor, maaaring okay yon. Pero yung vice mayor at yung vice governor, normally, wala. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Before I recognize Congressman Pao Ortega, I would just like to make a short manifestation. That is precisely the reason and the purpose of this committee hearing because this is in aid of legislation. Now, we are seeing loopholes sa mga batas po natin. Kaya nga po, ginagawa po natin ito so that we will be able to draft or enact laws that will help us set certain parameters with respect to this issue. Kasi ngayon lang po natin nakikita to eh. So, with that, the Honorable Ortega is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Of course, with the indulgence of Congressman Dionisio. Yes.
Okay daw.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would just like to include for the consumption of the committee, Mr. Chair, and for the the questions of the Honorable Abante. And to your point and manifestation, Mr. Chair, we do agree na kaya nga po natin tinitignan to dahil nagkakaroon po ng mga problema sa loopholes yung batas na nagagawa. So for the year 2000, 5.1 million under Vice President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. 2002, 5.1 million under Sofisto Gingona Jr. 2005 to 2010, 6 million under Vice President Noli Di Castro. 2011 under Vice President Jejo Marbinay. 2016 to 2022 under VP Lenny Robredo, 0. And under the current Vice President, Mr. Chair, 2023 is 500 million, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Congressman Abante.
Now, I do realize that it is upon the power of Congress to give, allow confidential fund. It is not the power of DBM, correct? Upon the power of Congress. Therefore, the Vice President should still be thankful that she was given a confidential fund by the power of Congress. Yun po yung gusto kong sabihin din sa inyo.
Thank you. The Chair would like to recognize the Honorable Dionisio for his interpellation.
Mr. Chair, sa wakas daw po. Hindi. Ang tatanong ko lang po kasi kung bakit napakaginaw dito ngayon. Hindi, Mr. Chair, biro lang. Marami pong salamat, Ginoong Tagapangulo, sa pagkakataon na makapagtanong ng konting clarificatory questions. Naalala ko lang si Ma'am sa COA. Ma'am, magandang hapon po sa inyo. Kayo po yung nakatabi ko last time dun sa nakaraang hearing. It's a pleasure to meet you again, everyone, sa ating mga resource speakers from COA.
Meron na po akong konting katanungan, if you could enlighten this humble representation, ma'am. Regarding po dun sa procurement process na ginagawa natin sa pag-acquire dito sa Office of the Vice President or procurement process in general, ano po ba yung mga steps? Briefly lang, ma'am. Ano po ba yung mga steps na dinadaanan ng mga bidders?
May I ask the help of our ATL since wala pong procurement sa confidential?
Yes,
Sige, kahit sino po.
Yusek Toledo, could you please respond to the query of the Honorable Dionisio?
May I request, well, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry that po, of the question or query, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was just simply asking very briefly, ano po ba yung proseso ng procurement process? Very briefly, dinadaanan ng isang bidder.
Okay. Based doon sa rule po natin sa 9184 po, syempre po, ang procurement po natin ay dumadalat. Normally, it's through bidding process po siya, wherein, of course, the bidders, contractors will have to submit their bidding documents and that it will be processed and evaluated by the back po. That's initially the process.
Meron pong ano yan, di ba? Ang tawag doon yung pre-bid conference.
Yes.
Tapos meron tayong public bidding, bid evaluation rating, tsaka post-qualification, tama po ba?
Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
The reason why I was asking this question, Mr. Chair, para makita lang yung maraming steps ang dinadaanan ng ating gobyerno para mabusisi maigi yung mga bidders na nag-a-apply sa ating gobyerno. So maraming steps na dinadaanan po. Tama po ba yun?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, Your Honor.
Opo. Yung tanong ko lang po, I think na-mention na rin, pero gusto ko malaman, categorically, sino po ba sa DepEd or ang nagde-determine ng eligibility and qualifications ng isang bidder?
Mr. Chair, probably it's not specific for DepEd, but there is also what we call for every agency, there is a back po, nagde-determine po ng qualified bidders po.
Yung back?
Yes po.
Ano po ba ibig sabihin ng back, sir?
Bids and Awards Committee po.
Yun po pala yung back. Oh. Yung important kasi na qualification po yata doon sa mga bidders, yung kapasidad din nila kung kaya nilang magawa o masupply yung mga binibid nila ng mga kontrata. Tama po ba yun?
Yes, definitely, Mr. Chair. Of course, they have to check kung pwede nila i-deliver ang exactly the programs or projects na binibid nila, Mr. Chair.
So we could easily say that it should be a minimum requirement na pinakaunang pamantayan natin, yung capacity ng isang bidder na kaya talaga niya dapat i-deliver yung binibid niya. Tama po ba yan, no?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So kung siya, minimum, ang isang dapat scrutinize din natin sa mga kumpanya na nag-a-apply na mag-supply sa iba't ibang ahensya ng ating pamahalaan, yung capacity to pay, kailangan nating mas scrutinize yung capital niya. Tama po ba yun?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chair, the capacity para ma-deliver niya is one of that. Qualification is to look at the capacity, yung capitalization niya. Kumbaga.
Tama kasi, am I correct in saying na ang capitalization ng isang kumpanya, hindi lamang doon kukunin yung amount ng pag-supply niya, nung binid niya, kung hindi pati yung basic operations ng kumpanya, hindi po ba kasama na doon sa capitalization niya?
I think, Mr. Chair, kung pati operations dapat kasama rin po doon sa capitalization niya, pero how to operate that corporation or the bidders or contractors, Mr. Chair.
So, sa pagkaintindi ko po sa ating maiksing pag-uusap, tama po ba na dapat may kapasidad sa kapital ang isang kumpanya sa pagsali sa mga bidding process sa gobyerno?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Having said that, Your Honor, there are some informations na na-receive ng inyong lingkod. I was really able to gather some information relative to the actual procurement recently entered by the DepEd. Pakisabi na lang po at pakiconfirm, should you know, if not, please verify these pieces of information na masubmit sa committee. Unang-una yung Advanced Solutions Inc. Isa po ba tong kumpanya na apply ng bidding sa DepEd? Sa COA na po siguro ito?
Mr. Chair.
Before you
Sorry.
proceed, we have yet to open the motion at the motu proprio. So we have to limit our question to the office of the Vice President. But of course, later, after the preliminary determination, we can proceed. But in the meantime, we have to limit the line of questioning to the office of the Vice President first.
Thank you for the enlightenment, Mr. Chair. Having heard the opinion of the chairman, I would reserve my questions for a later time. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable Lara.
Yeah, a while ago po, I manifested,
You have
Mr.
moved.
Chair, yeah, on the fund utilization of DepEd. I will now move, Mr. Chair, that said manifestation be put on motion that the committee take cognizance on the issues presented on the irregularity of the utilization sa paggamit ng pondo ng bayan ng naturang ahensya upang makita natin kung mayroon bang misfeasance, malfeasance, o non-feasance, Mr. Chair. So I move, Mr. Chair.
So there is a motion by the Honorable Lara to take cognizance of the motu proprio upon the manifestation of Representative Jervil Luistro of the 2nd District during the budget hearing of the Department of Education. Is there any objection? Seconded by the Honorable Gutierrez. Hearing none, the motion is carried. Okay. 1 minute suspension is declared by the chair.